Good afternoon. I'd like to call today's meeting to order. We have an agenda in front of us. Does anybody have any additions to the agenda changes? Okay, I would like to table 3.1 and 5.1 until our delegation is able to be here. So they should be along shortly, but we'll just put them in when they arrive. So seeing no others, just a motion to accept as amended, please. Councillor Brown, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried. We'll move on to number 4, the minutes from the June 8th meeting. Everybody's had a chance to read those. Does anybody have any additions or changes to be made? Motion to accept. Councillor Fraser.
I'll move to accept the minutes for the June 8th meeting as presented.
Thank you. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Is that our delegation? No? Okay. So we'll move on to number 6, old business. So the amendments, RFD for the amendments to a tree policy to accommodate food security. And I'll turn that over to Ms. Hartling.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. At the June 1st, council meeting, Councillor Fraser made a notice of motion that administration incorporate fruit trees into the town's tree planting policies and to address the food security and bring a report back to council. So if you look through the information that I've provided, we have incorporated some of council's wishes into the policies. There is no impact to the budget with the change to these policies, and there's no additional work for staff because it would just be another type of tree that would be added for council members or for members of the public in terms of the recognition to add. The policies have been reformatted as well into the town's font. So we changed it just updated it to the town's font. Under the Recognition Memorial Tree Program policy, that's the 009/2018 policy, a food security statement was added and the change was referenced by resolution number. Tree prices were also updated on this policy, and the new fruit trees, we put the price of the trees in there as well. The other thing that I added was schedule letters to the attachments because there were no schedule reference numbers there. So I have added those schedule numbers. And likewise, under the council and member at large service recognition program policy 19/2020, the policy statement has been updated to reflect the option for food security and the change referenced by resolution number. Prices were removed from the price of trees as this policy doesn't charge for council and members at large policy. So the trees that have been added, and there are some pictures that are included in the revised drawings, and that's in both the changes shown in red as well as in the clean copy. It shows the Uri pear tree, Prairie Magic apple, and an Evans sour cherry. I did work with the town's arborist in the identification of trees that were appropriate for our region and planting zone. A FOIP statement was also added to each application form. And a couple of comments from the arborists are included, which include with the fruit trees, there does need to be a cross-pollinator. However, several of the residents in those areas have trees that would serve as cross-pollinators, so it has to be within 100 meters. The other thing is that when two trees are put together, so if there were 2 trees planted, that they could look at having those 2 trees planted together. Now, that being said, the trees will still bloom, still flower. They just won't produce fruit unless there's a cross-pollinator in that 100-meter region. The black knot or the Evan cherry tree may be susceptible to black knot if there is black knot in the area. Just something to be aware of. And they did recommend fencing around some of these trees. So I just wanted to present all of that for council's information. I did include both copies of the policies showing the changes in red, as well as a clean copy of each policy for council's consideration. So, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
That's great. Thanks for that report, Ms. Hartling.
You're welcome.
And I don't have any questions. It was
Yeah.
just a very detailed
Very
report.
straight.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
does anybody else have any questions? Okay, so thank you. We have some alternatives in front of us. Councillor Brown?
If there's no further discussion, and are we reading these as two separate motions?
Yes.
Yes, please.
So the first motion, be it resolved that council amend recognition/memorial tree program policy 009/2018 to incorporate food security fruit trees as presented.
Thank you. All in favor of that motion? Carried. Thank you. Okay, and one more. Councillor Fraser?
I'll move that council amend the council member at large policy 019/2020 to incorporate food security fruit trees as presented.
Thank you. All in favor of that motion? Carried. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you, council, your worship.
Okay, so we'll move on now to number 7.1, discussion item, Rocky Chamber. I had this added to the agenda. I was just hoping that we could invite the chamber here as a delegation. I think it's been a while since they've been here, and I think it'd be great to catch up on what each other are doing. And especially now since they are a liaison with CAPE, we could get some information on that. So if we could invite them as a delegation. Okay, so I'll make that motion actually to invite the Chamber of Commerce, Rocky Chamber of Commerce, as a delegation to present to council. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Okay, and we'll move on now to the food security report. That's 7.2, please. Mr. Ament.
Good afternoon, your worship and council.
Good afternoon.
Just presenting this report as a follow-up to council's request with regard to what local programs and services are available to assist individuals and families with food security. And this was compiled by our manager of the FCSS. And it lists the various organizations in town and what services they currently provide. Short and sweet as far as the report goes. If council has any questions related to that, I'll try to answer those.
Councillor Fraser, I believe this was your item. Did you have any other questions you'd like to ask, or?
I guess my only question is, are we able to promote some of these? Because I feel that some of them that the community isn't aware of them, especially the community garden that is operating and has been operating for some time. I get comments about, well, there should be a community garden in town, and there is. So I'm wondering if, as part of the FCSS, when they're sharing out programs, that maybe we see if we can just kind of get the word out for these different groups.
I'm sure that can easily be done either through the FCSS Facebook page, the town's Facebook pages as well, social media.
Good.
I guess if there are no other questions, I will move that we accept the report on food security as information.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so I would like us to go back up to agenda item 3.1. And welcome, do you want to come on forward, Sergeant Dinsdale? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for taking the time to come in.
Well, thank you for inviting me or accepting your invitation or whatever, but appreciate the monthly.
Nope, that's fine.
All right, so thanks, yeah, thanks again, I really appreciate it. We just wanted to take a few minutes just to come up, new to the area. So I've only been in the Central Alberta District for, this is going on my third week. And I'm the regional manager for the area. My name is Darcy Fleury, and been around a long time, almost 35 years. But I just wanted to come up and meet with Carl and come and visit you and just put some FaceTime in there and let you know how things go with us. If there's, I'm not sure how the relationship is. I just was asking him on the drive over, saying, how's it going?
It's an excellent relationship.
Okay, good. I'd like to hear that. But yeah, so we just wanted to know, just kind of come up and let you know my job in the district is basically just kind of overseeing things and making sure things are running smoothly and that everything's going fine. If there's any concerns or issues, or if there's things that we're doing really, really good that we could do perhaps as best practices someplace else, that kind of thing. We want to know that. And just how the communication is going, like how things are working. And really, so I'm not ever going to get anybody's way. He's kind of the chief of police and off he goes. And whatever decisions he makes, hopefully it's with the community. You have a chance to get together, and we have an annual process that we go through where we set the priorities. And of course, those are federal, provincial, and then down to the community level. So I just want to make sure those are being done and the reporting processes and that type of thing. And really just get a feel for how we're doing. I think it was important because of just starting new and just being here fresh, that I get a chance to see as many people in as many communities as I can and kind of get that feel for how we're doing.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come to Rocky Mountain House to visit us and introduce yourself. Really wish we could shake your hands, but we will be able to at one point. And as I'm sure you're aware from Sergeant Dinsdale, we do have a policing committee. And currently, myself and Councillor Phillips do sit on that committee. And it's very informative and it's very helpful. We've had this committee now for 2.5 years. And actually, Ms. Hartling is on the committee as well as CAO Kraus sits on the committee too. Has it been 2.5 years? Probably, Renee? Or? Yeah. Anyways, it's very, very helpful. We find it extremely important to have that connection on an ongoing basis.
So do you, when the committee, do you get together with Carl and do you meet as to priorities and how are you going to set that? And
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Yes, actually, we just had a committee meeting a couple weeks ago. So, and Sergeant Dinsdale does come on a regular basis, so that's very helpful.
And how are you receiving reports?
By Sergeant Dinsdale.
Do you do like monthly, every couple of months, quarterly, or?
I was doing a monthly report basically when we met with the committee. The district and division has recently directed that there's a new format for the quarterly reporting that's going out, and that's typically what I table at meetings with the policing committee.
Okay.
And then if the policing committee has any specific information that they would like me to provide, I bring that back to the next meeting. There's some information at the next meeting I'm going to be providing to address those concerns. So it's a great system. It's a great conduit to mayor and council without having to go and go through the delegation process and take up time in their regular meetings. So
Yes, I find it very useful, and as well, there's always, if we do have a concern, we maybe message Sergeant Dinsdale, and he and I and Mr. Kraus will meet also, and bring some concerns forward that way. So yes, I feel like it's a great relationship. So yeah, very open communication.
Excellent.
And I mean, only room for improvement, but I mean, already it's a good relationship. So does anybody else have any comments or questions? Councillor Phillips?
Just have one question. Thank you for taking the time to come and talk with us and introduce yourself. You're probably aware that we're kind of bursting at the seams at this detachment, and that's probably something you've already heard. And I just wanted to put the bug in your ear that, it probably is going to be something that, has to be looked at. And just, costing models and things like that would be interesting to hear.
Actually, I just as we were walking out the back door, so by the way, it's pretty small in here, so. I'm going, yeah, I can kind of see that, and I'm not sure where it sits, so we have, I'm not sure how it works here in Alberta because I haven't been on the committee yet, but we do have a committee that looks at all of our real property and where they fit in the priority as far as being replaced or being renovated or whatever. I'm not sure, I don't even know if this building is an RCMP building or if it's a municipal building or.
It's an RCMP.
It's an RCMP building? So we'll have to look and see where it's built in 82, I believe Carl was saying.
89, I think, 88, 89. 89, I think the door's open.
Okay, so it's probably, being an 89 build is probably on the lower end of the priorities. I'm just saying how, I've been on other committees where I see that. I mean, we're talking about buildings, some of our buildings are built in the 40s and the 50s, right? So they're higher on the list. But I will definitely go back and take a look and we'll have conversations as to where we are. Yeah, it does need some, just what I've seen so far, it needs a bit of work.
We're not in a real hurry, just for the record. So,
No one wants to spend that.
no, we're not in a hurry. And actually, Mr. Kraus and I did have a meeting with K-Division. How many months ago was that?
It works. I think that was back in November, so quite a while ago.
Was that with our strategy branch? Do you know?
Yes,
Yes.
it was.
Yeah. Was it Mike Good or Nina?
I would have to reference our notes.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, no, but I kind of know who you're referring to, so I'll touch base with them and see where we're at. Is there any municipal employees at the office?
Yes, there's 5 municipal employees as support staff, complemented by now 5 public servants.
Okay.
And then the municipal contracts for Rocky Mountain House accounts for 13 policing positions.
Okay. And I take it they charge back to the part of the space, back to the city?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the usual practice. Okay, so I'll look into that and see where we are, and hopefully maybe in a couple of years or something, because it won't be, I'm glad you're not in a hurry, because it won't be overnight.
How about 10?
Yeah, that might work. That might put us on that, in that framework.
Okay.
Yeah, it might get us there. And it comes down to basically the size of it as well. Like, it does look pretty cramped, and even the parking space, just when I went in, I said, oh geez, you got a lot of vehicles here, so definitely something we'll look at. This will be across the board. Like, like I said, I'm brand new. So when I go to the communities, this is what I want to hear. Like, where are we and how we're doing? And of course, paying attention to the resources that we have. I was just going to ask, do you get an opportunity to meet some of the younger members? Do they come to your meetings or any of this kind of thing?
Well, actually, unfortunately, due for to the past year, we haven't had an opportunity to do a lot of that at all. So with any luck at all, we can go forward this summer and possibly have maybe an informal meet and greet or something like that. Because yes, I'd like to meet all of them. So we could perhaps look at planning an event where council could meet.
Okay.
Maybe even at an outside venue, so we could just sort of walk by and as safely as possible.
Maybe an open house or something?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I've been here for a year and 5 months, and it feels like I've just been on pause since I've arrived.
Yeah.
So it certainly has hampered the way that I would normally become involved in the community and get to know the community and meet the community. So it's been a real challenge. We're a young detachment. We have probably a number of members in the office that even if they have 2 or 3 years service now, you may not have actually met them. So definitely, we'll make some arrangements to have an open house concept or some sort of a meet and greet with council and the town proper, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree. Let's look at planning something like that for the summer, possibly, and yeah.
How often do you remember? What's the rotation? Is it 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, 3 to 5.
3 to 5.
About 3 to 5.
Okay. So you might meet someone that's been here for a while that you
Yeah.
haven't
We have
met yet.
some stalwarts, some long, like they're just, Harold Smiths is, he's just a permanent fixture, and he's been here for the RCMP, he's been here,
Long
oh
time.
gosh,
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
long time. That's
well
great.
over a decade, maybe even closer to 2 decades.
And he's done some very valuable work with their youth at the
Yeah.
at the school, so that's awesome. Yeah,
You know, Harold, you haven't been out of your house.
that's right. Yes, he makes a big presence. He's a big presence in our community, for sure.
And the community has been, I don't know how many retired members live in town now, but there's several. So it's attractive to the members that have served here. They often come back.
They do.
Or just simply retire here
Yeah.
when their time is up, so.
Well, it is pretty. I took the back roads coming and it was a nice drive.
Sorry, where did you come from today?
I came in from, well, my office is at the airport, just by the airport at the hangar
In Edmonton?
in Edmonton. Yeah.
Okay.
So I drove down from that. I'm not sure, came down and I took, I'm not sure which road I took,
Highway
Yeah.
22?
probably. And then I came down and I did a bit of a zigzag to get here.
Good,
So I think I'll take 11 back to Sylvan and then
nice.
it was nice, but I missed the weather, which was good. I heard there was a big storm here earlier, so
There was.
yeah.
So where have you spent the majority of your career, your policing career?
I've kind of been all over. I started off in Ontario, so I started in Toronto for 5 years and then moved to Kenora, which is really pretty by Lake of the Woods. Then I went to Iqaluit for a year, then I spun over to Yellowknife for 13, and then I was in Calgary for 5, and then Manitoba for the last 6,
Wow.
and now back here,
So just recently back to Alberta then?
3 weeks.
Wow,
This
well,
is,
welcome back.
I finished 2 weeks working now. This is going into my 3rd week.
Welcome to Alberta.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it, and I didn't think I'd ever retire in Alberta because being from Manitoba,
Uh-huh.
and all my friends that were up north were from Alberta, and it was always a little competition on just about everything. So I never thought I'd ever retire here, but my kids are here and in Edmonton.
Oh, good.
But this time around, we're going to do a lot of traveling. We're going to come out and visit and see some of the spots because we just haven't done that. And it's so beautiful. And even just like I said, coming in, it was beautiful. So
Well, we are where adventure begins, so
yeah, yeah.
come on
exactly.
back and
Thanks. Yeah, anytime if you want us to come back for another meeting and kind of get like you'll get the full picture from Carl how things are going and everything at the local level, and any questions like this with the building and all that, definitely without having to call OSB all the time. I'll leave my card maybe just here.
That's
And,
awesome.
Yeah, give us a shout anytime, and we can help you out with what's happening within the province and maybe even some of the national stuff that we do.
that's great, great to hear. Does anybody have any other questions, comments? Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come, and it was nice to meet you, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Excellent, thank
See
you.
you soon.
Thank you. We'll see you Monday, Sergeant Dinsdale, for the flag raising
raising,
ceremony.
yes.
Yeah,
Perfect.
awesome.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that.
yes, we are
It's
too.
myself and I think a couple other members will be there, and we'll be in Red Surge.
Nice, that's great.
Definitely work.
It's a big day for us.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, no,
fantastic.
it's going to be quite significant. Looking
Good.
forward to it.
Awesome. Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Enjoy the
thanks
rest of
again.
your tour. Safe travels. Okay, bye. Okay, so we'll move down to, back to 5.1. Just a motion, please, to accept the delegation as information. Councillor Phillips?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Oh, my computer went. So we'll move on to 8.1 then. Sorry, Ms. Hartling, did we finish the, yeah, we did get a motion for the food security? Yes, we did, forget, okay. Yeah, I didn't write that down. So we'll move on to 8.1, the Truth and Reconciliation, the Commission of Canada calls to action. And I turn that over to Mr. Kraus. Or Ms. Hartling?
No, thank you, Your Worship. So administration did review the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action and highlighted the items that either stipulate municipal governments or all level of governments. So in 40, so we call on all level of governments in collaboration with Aboriginal people to create adequately funded and accessible Aboriginal specific victim programs and services with the appropriate evaluation mechanisms. So I think with each one, we can, the council wants to discuss what could the municipality do. With that one, I know 40. I know, you know, the municipality does fund victim services, for example, but perhaps it might be asking them to come to council as a delegation to see if we're actually have any specific programs for victims that are Aboriginal. And I'll leave it up to council to discuss more.
Okay, what would council like to see? Councillor Narang?
I think that's a simple way to sort of address that call to action by having the victim services group come and report to council how they are addressing that call to action. I think that would be meaningful so that we know what's being done.
Okay. Councillor Ald?
I know I've been asking for quite some time now to have the council from the Uchis and whatnot to come in and get everybody in the same room and have these conversations. So I think it's at a minimum, that's a great idea. If it opens the doors to get everybody in the same room and have a chat, I think that's great.
Yes, and I think that's a great idea. And again, back to, once everything gets back to normal, we can do that. And possibly as early as Monday, set something up, because all of councils will be coming from Sunchild and Ochese as well. So we can have those conversations. I do talk regularly with Chief Beaverbones and Chief French Eater, but definitely that was the intent when we started meeting just before the pandemic started. So it's certainly a good place to take off again. I also wanted to bring up number 35. We call upon the federal government to eliminate barriers to the creation of additional Aboriginal healing lodges within the federal correctional system. And I believe that's with the Grandmother Turtle Lodge. I believe that's a big conversation to have with them regarding that. And so make recommendations to the federal government that they provide support for their healing lodge. So. I actually went through all of these and, kind of, I don't know where we start. I don't know which ones the federal government has started taking action on. I do know there was a National Day of Mourning, and I believe the federal government is now moving on that, on creating a National Day of Mourning to remember victims of residential schools. So should we send a letter to the federal government to say, overall, we recommend that you take action to all of these recommended calls to action? Councillor Narang?
Yeah, I think that, and also ask them to provide an update as to where they are on
Okay.
each of those calls to action, because I know they've just removed the administrative costs and whatnot to name changing and all of those things, to changing the documents to reclaiming traditional names. That was just, I think, this week, but they have addressed some of these things, but it would be nice to have an update, not only from the federal government, but from the provincial government as well, because there's a lot of calls in here that relate to both of them, both levels, and our level as well.
Councillor Fraser?
I agree with Councillor Narang, and specifically on, I know the federal government and multiple levels of government have records that are being sought. So perhaps in that letter, we ask them to participate fully and release all the records that they have, so that we can have the fullest picture and have the most amount of information available to the public.
Any other discussion? So what I'm hearing then is we'll send we need a motion to send a letter to the federal government and the provincial government asking for follow-up on what actions have been taken and any updates to this report. Did I capture that, Councillor Narang?
Yeah, for part of it, but I think there's still lots more conversation that we can continue having today. I don't want that to be the end of this conversation.
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
Okay, that's just
fine.
one motion coming out of
Yeah,
this? Okay.
the one motion I would like to see is to ask the federal government what they have taken, what actions they've taken so far, and to find out their timeline on fulfilling their promise to act on the calls of action. Is that clear enough, Ms. Hartling? Would you mind reading it back when you have it?
So I've got it, be it resolved that council instruct administration to send a letter to the provincial and federal governments requesting a full report on what actions have been taken to date on the truth and reconciliation calls to action, as well as a timeline for the implementation of future calls to action. Does that
That-
meet?
That captures what
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
pretty clear on that. Any more conversation around that motion? And I'll make that motion. So all in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So then we will talk more about having some sort of training for municipal staff. That's regarding number 40.
Yeah, your worship, so training for public servants is item 57.
57, sorry, what was
40 was victim services.
victim services? Okay. Okay, so we're kind of all over here. Go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your worship, would you like me to repeat what I have so far? So for under number 40, I have that be it resolved that council instruct administration to invite victim services to council to see how victim services provides accessible Aboriginal specific victim programs. Then I also have a resolution that be it resolved that council instruct administration to send a letter to the federal government requesting support for the Turtle Lodge project.
You know what? I think I will hold off on that.
wanna
I'd like
hold
to
off on that
first
one?
talk to the organizers first of all of the
Okay.
Grandmother Turtle Lodge, and
Okay.
we're trying to set something up for next Monday since they will be here in town anyway. So
Okay, sure.
yeah, so hold off on that one, please.
Okay.
I'd like them to advise us on what they want us to do.
Okay, sure, I'll do
Okay.
that. Thank you, Your
Okay,
worship.
thank you. So should we deal with that other motion, the motion regarding victim services first, or should we just go through the rest of this?
Your worship, I think it'd be easier if we just do motions as we go through, or if council does motions.
Okay, so is everybody clear? And actually, I need somebody to make the motion for victim services, please. Councillor Narang? Okay, and do we all want that read back again, or is everybody good with it? Okay, all in favor of the motion for victim services? Okay, thank you, that's carried. So do we want to start at 1, or how do we want to do this?
I think Dean has it kind of highlighted as the ones that are relevant to us. Sorry.
Okay,
So your worship, I just went through it, and anything that related to municipal governments, I highlighted and to bring to council's attention. So the next one is on 47, where it's, we call upon federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments to repudiate concepts used to justify European sovereignty over Indigenous peoples and lands, such as the doctrine of discovery and terra nullius, to reform those laws, government policies, and litigation strategies that continue to rely on such concepts. In review of that, I didn't identify any, but we might have to do more research into that to see the effects.
Councillor Narang?
Just a thought, I mean, that's a big one, that's like a huge deep dive, but I'm wondering, I had been kind of thinking about like our municipal conferences and whatnot, would this sending out an invitation to both of the, or I guess all three even of the nations to attend our AUMA conference and fund that, would that be part of this? Like if we extended an invitation for one or two from each council to attend?
Your worship, yeah, I think that would be an awesome idea, because that's where we, as urban municipalities, put forward resolutions on laws for the provincial government and so forth. So I think having their input into that and to see if any resolutions have any effect would be quite advantageous.
So would we go as far then before, when we're doing the resolutions from our council, we would include possibly a conversation with our First Nation neighbors to see if they would like to see anything included in our resolutions? Councillor Narang?
Would it be a resolution of council to send to AUMA? Would we want to send a resolution to AUMA that suggests that somehow, I don't know how to formulate that, but that AUMA engage with nations from across the province and make this sort of a provincial initiative, if that somehow we can formulate something that encapsulates that? I don't know what that would read like or what it would look like, but encouraging those partnerships and participation.
Has the invite ever been extended, or can First Nation communities, do we have First Nations communities that are part of AUMA?
Not to my knowledge, Your Worship. I mean, we could ask them.
Possibly a conversation with AUMA first then. I'm not even sure which department that would be. Policy?
Your Worship, administration can reach out to AUMA and come back to council with it.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
I would still like to extend an invitation to participate too in the AUMA conference, though similar to like we used to do with the county.
Should we do that now, or should we just wait and find out what AUMA has to say as well on, I think it's an invite to participate in AUMA altogether, to be a member as a municipality, to be a member in AUMA. So if we got some information back on that and then wrap that all up in, because it would be a totally separate conversation then, all including AUMA membership and inviting to the actual conference.
Me?
Yeah, go ahead, finish this.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, in my mind, I see them sort of separate as us as a municipality extending an invitation before that even happens, because who knows how long that process could take, as well as if that is a too grand of an invitation, because it's going to take some time for even those communities to, they might want to get to know what AUMA is all about too. And then so that invitation from us is more on a personal level, I think would be good. And then on top of that, also encouraging AUMA to invite those communities to participate, because RMA is going to need to do the same thing. Like I think it should, or not need to, but maybe should be encouraged to do the same thing, as most of those communities I think exist sort of in the bounds of a rural municipality.
I totally agree, but this would also be a budgetary item as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
Right,
for sure.
so,
Yeah.
I have Councillor Phillips and Councillor Brown.
And I think if we could have, a meeting with our councils all together, that could be a topic brought up during that meeting and saying, what is your wish? What is your desire when it comes to the AUMA? Would you be willing to do this? As opposed to just sending out an invitation that doesn't have any real background behind it. It'd be nice to have a conversation with them about it.
And to explain what AUMA
Yep,
is.
exactly.
And what it stands
Yep.
for, what it sets to accomplish. Yeah. Councillor Brown?
And that's exactly what I was going to be talking about as well. So I'm in support of that.
So we're all kind of on the same wavelength then? Okay. So action out of that is to just have a meeting with the councils, the joint councils, to discuss AUMA. And then,
With AUMA to discuss.
or just reach out to AUMA first. We're kind of beating this back and forth there.
I think they're two separate
Yeah.
items. One is having a meeting with councils to discuss their attendance in AUMA. The other one is talking to AUMA about bringing Aboriginal nations in as members.
And my feeling is that they will have history already on this. And so I think definitely we reach out to whichever department at AUMA would be to do that. Okay, we'll need a motion then, or admin is just going to reach out to AUMA and bring back information.
Your Worship, a motion would be appreciated.
Okay. Councillor Narang?
Now, when we're making these motions, just for documentation, would it be nice to include, with relation to call to action number, is that going to be in the motion so that when we're documenting, we know what we're referencing? Yep. Okay.
Are you making that?
I would make the motion as well, in reference to call to action number 47, that council directs administration to reach out to AUMA to discuss participation of First Nations communities in the conference,
Or would it be history
or
of?
anything. I guess just reach out to AUMA and have a conversation about it. I don't know, however you want to word it. Renee? Help me.
So what I've got here is, be it resolved that council instruct administration to have a conversation with AUMA regarding First Nations participation with AUMA. Okay,
So good?
is that okay?
Everybody's clear on that? Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried. And then we have another motion to reach out formally to have a meeting with Sunchild, Ochese, and Bighorn. To have a joint council meeting, would we do that all at once? I guess regarding restrictions, that might be a lot of people. We may have to have it at, say, at the community center. Okay, so Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I'm just curious if we're talking about a meeting or perhaps a workshop?
What would you like?
Well, the workshop just to discuss where we're sitting at certain things and how they feel about AOMA in the UNDRIP report.
Actually, a workshop might be good because then we can give them, all three communities as well, a couple of agenda items that they may want to add as well. So would you see that as being better as a workshop or a meeting? It's just all in the wording? Okay. Councillor Phillips?
Yeah, whether you call it a workshop or a meeting, either or is fine. I think more than just an AUMA topic needs to be in the conversation. There needs to be conversations about, healthcare. You name the conversation, it can happen at that meeting, but definitely there'd be a multitude of topics being brought up.
In past meetings, when I've gone out to Ochese, we've had an agenda, and that agenda has been similar to our agenda, where each community has input into that agenda and what they would like to have added. So, okay. So I will make that motion to reach out to all of those communities to find a good date, a suitable date. We're running out of time here, but I would like to initiate a meeting as soon as we possibly can. Renee, do you have all that captured in that motion?
Your worship, I think so. I can read it back to you. Be it resolved that council contact First Nations councils from Sunchild, Ochese, and Bighorn to participate in a workshop, including conversations of interest from each council, including participation in the AUMA, and to establish a date that will work for same. Does that work?
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay.
Anybody else? Mr.
Your
Kraus?
worship, maybe provide guidance to administration of a timeline that the council would feel suitable.
Can we say before the end of July? And then we could possibly get some sort of an idea on Monday when we talk to councils as to their availability as well. Does that work for everybody? Okay. Any other questions or comments on that motion? All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Okay. Mr. Kraus, did you have any more?
So, thank you, your worship. So, number 57, where it goes, we call upon federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments to provide education to public servants on the history of Aboriginal peoples, including the history and legacy of residential schools, the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, treaties and Aboriginal rights, Indigenous law, and Aboriginal Crown relations. This will require skill-based training in intercultural competency, conflict resolution, human rights, and anti-racism. So, your worship, and the most we have done so far as an organization is a blanket exercise, which involved council and directors. Administration has looked into training that would meet the requirements of 57. So, and it is actually fairly close, and they would come here. It varies depending. Full day is 2,500, 2 days is 4,000, or 3 days 6,000. The half day covers the bare minimum of Action 57, and then it increases from there. So that would be involving or making it open to all council and staff.
And those prices would include all staff. Does it say how many
Yeah, Your Worship,
participants?
we would have to follow up more with it to see how large the classes can be
Okay,
and make arrangement. We can bring that back to council. But I am 100% sure we can fit it in our 2021 budget as is, because COVID has reduced a lot of training opportunities and travel opportunities in 2021.
okay. Okay, thank you. What would, any other conversation or council's wishes on that? Councillor Narang?
I also, actually, we'll do this motion first because what I'm saying is separate to that. Sorry.
Okay. Councillor Fraser?
Do we need to select the length, or can we get a recommendation from them as to, because I'm sure with larger sizes there might be one that fits better for larger groups?
So Your Worship, so what administration is thinking is the full day for majority of staff, then probably 2 days for council and directors, because the 2 days also include policy development and regional collaboration as part of the core structure.
So the motion just to explore this option first and bring it back to council. The idea of a 2-day workshop. Okay, Councillor Phillips?
If there's no other discussion, I'll make that motion.
Thanks. And everybody's clear on that? All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Okay, Councillor Narang?
I just wanted to mention, similar to the blanket exercise, the 60 Scoop Society does a similar exercise to that I attended at the library a couple years ago, but they also have an interactive display that they will bring to communities. And I thought like even the Christensen Center would be a great location for that in the lobby. I have reached out to them just to see what that looks like, but maybe I'll just bring that back to council. Or is that something that administration would look into?
So directed by council.
Are you making a motion, Councillor Narang?
Sure, yep. I will make a motion that to direct administration to reach out to the 60 Scoop Indigenous Society of Alberta to inquire about the interactive display.
I took part in that workshop as well, and it
That's
was
right.
very informative.
So good.
So, any other questions on that motion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, Mr. Kraus, did you see any others on here that specifically?
Thank you, Your Worship. So there's 2 more that relates specifically to municipalities. Number 77, which I don't think applies to us because it's about records of residential schools. And Rocky Mountain House, as far as I could research, did not have a residential school.
Okay,
And the next one is 88. And we call upon all levels of government to take action to ensure long-term Aboriginal athlete development and growth and continued support for the North American Indigenous Games, including funding to host the games for the provincial and territorial team preparation and travel. So
okay, Councillor Phillips and then Councillor Narang.
I remember there was a conversation once about Indigenous games coming here, and I think Kirby Big Child was the liaison for that. I think that's a great idea, to pursue something like that and bring that to our community for sure.
I believe that was last year, right? It was going to be the year after the Masters, so I believe it was last year, but I think pretty much everything fizzled. So something. Councillor Narang?
2 things. I just have to go back to number 77 because I do think it is applicable in the sense that we have many, many survivors in our local communities that attended the residential schools. So I'm wondering if maybe that is somehow, like, we need to look at it from that perspective. But I don't know what the action would be. unless that action is captured in the letter that we've already agreed to send.
Yeah, so your worship, the action item in 77 is to identify and collect copies of all records relevant to the history and legacy of the residential school system.
So we don't have any copies of records here, but
Right.
you're saying to reach out to the survivors to get there?
No, I guess I'm going back to what Councillor Fraser was referencing earlier, talking about releasing records. So I'm thinking that as I'm speaking that this is likely captured in the letter that we're sending, encouraging the federal government to participate and release documentation. So I think I'm fine.
Councillor Phillips?
And perhaps when we have our council meetings together, this can be an agenda item. And to see what kind of action can be taken to help the individuals that were in residential schools.
Okay, so are we good with 77 then?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're back to 88. Oh, sorry, Councillor Auld?
Just to echo what Len was saying, we were talking about this before and having the games down at the NSRP. I think it's definitely something that we could get behind and involve everybody in, and maybe push up the ladder on their behalf. But I think it'd be an amazing function to have here.
I totally agree, and it's a perfect facility to have it at as well, down at the North Saskatchewan River Park. So Councillor Narang?
Sorry, and also these calls to action don't just refer, and actually they don't, I think, at all refer to the Indigenous games that we were talking about. These really do refer to, most of them refers to actually encouraging participation in sports as a whole. So I don't know if that's something that we need to, like at the Christensen Center, in my mind, like whether we have a land acknowledgement, maybe like a plaque of a land acknowledgement at the Christensen Center as a welcoming space, something along those lines. Or they talk about anti-racism training for organized sports. I don't know what number that was. Oh, provide education for management and staff on the history. There was one in here, maybe I'll come back to it, but I just think that creating a space of anti-racism within our sporting facilities would also be a good idea. Oh, anti-racism awareness and training programs for coaches, trainers, sports. It's under number 90. And then the subtitles. So just doing something, I think, because recreation is that's a huge part of what municipalities are responsible for. So I don't know whether it is something like a land acknowledgement plaque or encouraging and providing information for the organized sports teams, that like when you look at like the junior Bs or the midget hockey teams or those organized sports, and offering them some sort of, whether it be access to the anti-racism training that we're providing or inviting the coaches, I don't know.
I think does minor hockey or say any of those organizations, do they do this already? Is it a component of what they are already doing? I'm just wondering.
I don't know.
So what direction would you like to give admin on this one then?
I don't know yet. But maybe I'm wondering if maybe it would be good, like if there's ice users meetings and then we have like the swimming pool, what is the swim club there? The Barracuda. So maybe it's a matter of meeting with the leaders within the community and like the football team, meeting with the leaders and finding out what they are doing as far as anti-racism training goes. And maybe we have a grant program that has to do with educating the youth that are participating in sports around the history of our community and around anti-racism, things like that.
Could this be something that would go to the rec department or rec board meeting? And they could fan that out, or would that be appropriate to do that, to have you brought up?
With council's direction, sure.
Okay. Councillor Narang?
I'm just thinking. Okay. Then I would make a motion to direct administration to reach out to leadership within all of our organized sports. So that would be like football, baseball, hockey, swimming, speed skating, I don't know, to reach out to leadership to have a conversation about what they are currently doing with regards to anti-racism awareness and training.
So are you saying administration, or are you saying take it to the rec board?
I think administration, I
Yeah.
think.
Your worship, because if it goes to the rec board, it's gonna come to administration, so we might as well just go straight
Go
to
there,
them, yeah,
okay.
so.
Okay. Any more questions around that or comments? Renee, you have that?
Yes, I do,
Can you
Your
read it
Worship.
back?
Yeah. Do you want it read back? Be it resolved that council instruct administration to reach out to leadership with sports groups in the community to see what efforts are being done to address anti-racism and other initiatives, similar initiatives. Does that work? Okay.
Everybody clear on that motion? Okay. All in favor of that motion? Okay. I know this is a big report to tackle, and we've given administration quite a few tasks right now. So can we possibly just put this on hold as well for now? Or did you have any other that specifically?
No, your worship, that was the last one that specifically mentioned municipal governments. I'm not too sure if we captured all of council's comments or ideas in this last go around. Did we deal with Indigenous games?
I do not have a resolution for Indigenous games.
My thought it was that it was going to go first to admin to take it to the user groups and find out what's already out happening. Am I wrong? Fraser?
I think there are two separate, that there is the Indigenous Games, which was the games that was supposed to come here and have an event. And I think that's kind of a separate, what's happening with that. And then Indigenous athletes and sports, and whether there is anti-racism training within those organizations. So both of them have Indigenous athletes, but there's kind of two separate pieces there, I think.
Yeah, I think it was reaching out to Kirby Big Child regarding where that stands, right, as an event.
Is that a resolution that somebody wants to make then? Councillor Phillips?
Sure, I'll make the motion that we reach out to Kirby Big Child regarding Aboriginal games and potentially hosting in Rocky.
Somehow I feel like that was Indigenous games or a relay. Was it an Indian relay is what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, your worship, so administration was working with
Yeah.
the Friendship Center on the Indian relays being at the North Saskatchewan River.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So is everybody clear on the motion by Councillor Phillips? Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Okay, does anybody have any other comments?
So, your worship, just one other idea that was being discussed by council was actually posting our acknowledgement at the Christian Center. So I don't know if council wants that for further discussion. I mean, it could also be posted in the council chambers. It could also be posted like a plaque outside with the raising of the flags. I mean, we wouldn't have it in time for the raising of the flags, but I mean, that's something that could go out on that rock out there, for example, but I'll leave it to council's discussion.
That seems appropriate. Councillor Fraser?
I was wondering if that might be something we'd want on the agenda for our meetings with council. Just where would they like to see it and how would they like it worded, and just to bring them in on it so they're part of that.
We have, our wording was certainly given to us or from yeah, and then I also had Elder Teresa Strawberry as well vet it, and so she was completely fine with our acknowledgement. So I do know, and I also asked how often an acknowledgement should be given, and I was told that it should be given whenever you want to give it, whenever in your heart you feel like giving it. So I do like the idea of putting that acknowledgement out on our rock with the raising of the flag. So, Councillor Narang?
Yeah, I would like to see it at the Christensen Center somewhere prominent as well, I think, or the Recreation Center somewhere.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I agree with both those previous comments, and I'd also like to, as Mr. Crow said, have it in council chambers as well.
Okay, so I just looking for a motion. Councillor Fraser?
I will make that motion.
Renee, do you have that? We're giving them here, left, right, and center.
I was just gonna say, I'm not gonna start.
So I have, be it resolved that council instruct administration to put the Indigenous acknowledgement on the rock at the, in the front of town, the town office, the Christian Sports and Wellness Center, and in council chambers. Written, I guess I'll add written acknowledgement.
Okay, everybody clear on that? All in favor of that motion? Thank you. Thanks, admin, for all of this work on here. Okay, so we will move on to number Number 9, I just need a motion, please, to accept 9.1 to 9.11 as correspondence for information. Councillor Phillips? Thank you. All in favor? Carried. We'll move on to number 10.1, administrative reports. CAO report.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think in all of this report, one item I'd like to highlight to council is our SEEP program. We've been working hard with FCM on the grant portion of this program. It's quite onerous. It's a 54-page contract for the grant and the loans. But I think today, after having a meeting this morning with Ms. Quinlan and Ms. Hartling and FCM's response to it, I think we're good to go to sign the agreement. I mean, the highlight is the interest for the program is 0% for the loan.
That's fantastic.
So we, thanks to Ms. Hartling and beating FCM down, I guess I think is probably the proper term, from an interest rate to 0%, which assists quite well with our residents. So, but I think we're still a few months out before we can get the program off the ground, just to get through the paperwork with FCM and the province. We did contact, or Ms. Hartland contacted the town of Devon, because they're in the same boat as us, and I know they were getting frustrated, and they were just going to proceed with the program and investigating that. What they mean by proceed is take the applications in, but they still got to wait for the province. So we decided not to go down that path, because then it'd be just raising the hope of your residents, and they still could be a couple months out before their project is even approved.
Sure.
So, but we are diligently working on it to get it off the ground here.
So the biggest holdup is what now?
Just finalizing the agreement with FCM. I think that's, once that's signed, then we can our own agreement with, yeah.
So why do you think it's taking the FCM so long to finalize that then?
So there were some decisions made at the federal level that impacted the Clean Energy Improvement Program. And so I think they actually had to go back to the drawing board. And I think it's maybe because of the size of the federal government that maybe there wasn't communication between departments. And so they released a couple of programs that would have actually killed the Clean Energy Improvement Program. So conversations were had and they've negotiated. That's why, we did push for the 0% because some of the programs being offered at the federal level are offering 0%. They've also got grants. And so we've talked with them as well about the possibility of layering some of these projects. So the grants that are available at the federal level. We'll be encouraging our local residents to participate in the federal application as well, just so that it can minimize the amount they need to borrow, and it still supports the initiative. But I think that the conversations that have taken place, you know, from the various departments at the federal level, I think that's kind of what stalled everything, you know, and probably writing the 54-page agreement took some time too, so.
Well, again, thanks. I know it's not, I know you guys would have had this up and running a long time ago, so. My worry is that our contractors are gonna lose, you know, interest in this program. So hopefully, once it gets out and running, we can just promote the heck out of it. So thank you for all your work.
You're very welcome. And we're still pushing for an open house with our contractors because they still have to get registered if they haven't done so with the province already. And I think that we can do some work just in regards to at least getting that started so we can get them registered and ready to go. So I do have a meeting this week where we'll hopefully be talking about that with our communications coordinator. So.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Anything else on Mr. Krause's report or any other highlights? No? Okay, seeing none. I'll make a motion to accept the CAO report as presented. All in favor of that motion? Carried. Okay, and we'll move on to the director's reports. Recreation Community Services, you have any highlights, Mr. Ament? It's probably a busy time trying to get the facilities all back up and running.
Yes. Putting it mildly. Happy to say, you know, we opened our facilities yesterday.
Nice.
The staff have been very busy at the Christensen Center with the gym. People flocking back, really. We sold several new memberships and
Good.
reinstated the process of reinstating the memberships that had been suspended. And at the same time, we actually launched Perfect Mind yesterday as well as part of that. So orientating our staff to the use of the new system. Still got a couple of kinks to work out. It's going to be a work in process on the finance and the debit machines and those types of things. But we thought, well, rather than our staff bringing them back using the old system and then re-entering into the new system, we just launched directly into the new program. So kudos to my staff for all the hard work that they've done getting that Perfect Mind system, and it hopefully will work out some of the bugs here in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be fully implemented with the new recreation software. So yeah, both the pool and the fitness center opened, and they were both very busy yesterday.
Good.
As day one.
I'm sure. Are we back to full pool swimming lessons for kids?
They are able to in phase 2, so they're promoting their next, right now they're doing just the private lessons, but they will have new lesson sets starting in July.
That's great.
So,
Well, thank you to all your staff, you and your staff as well, for all the extra work.
Yeah, the other thing is we have our summer camps starting as well in July.
Oh,
So
good.
we've just gone through the process of hiring a summer camp coordinator. We've finished interviews for summer camp leaders yesterday, and we'll be bringing a couple people on there as well. So, and then promoting that out and getting registrations for the 8 weeks of summer camps. Lots of exciting things happening. So.
Awesome, great. Councillor Phillips?
I have a question. I'm not sure if this is a administrative inquiry or a question of the recreationals. I had a couple people asking me about the chuck wagons. I know they said they weren't running this year, but in a lot of other communities, things are starting to, events that were canceled are coming back. And I was wondering if there was an opportunity that the chucks could somehow make this year work now that the potential of restrictions being lifted is there.
We had received an inquiry from one of the chuck wagon drivers looking to use the North Saskatchewan River Park for training. They've since, with the cancellation of the Pinoka Stampede, determined that they weren't going to be doing that. So at this point, I have not heard anything directly from the Rocky Mountain Chuckwagon Association about a possible event. At the last we heard, they have canceled for this year. So I haven't heard anything further.
Just wondering if maybe it's worth a conversation just to say, hey, is there any way to potentially make this event happen?
Didn't they cancel back in early spring? So I don't know.
Yeah, my understanding is the World Professional Chuckwagon Association canceled their events, but the Canadian Chuckwagon Association, which is a different circuit, they are the ones that are running some events. So as a matter of some of the drivers themselves making arrangements or those, but I have not heard anything officially from the Rocky group.
And, lots of these groups could take advantage too of our community kickstart grant. So it would be great to see some of them, if they could hold an event, to throw their application in for that. So, any other questions for Mr. Ament? Anything else you want to point out?
I don't think so.
No?
It's
Okay.
been the focus of most of our things. I know the Recreation Board is meeting on Friday just as a review of the Recreation Master Plan and sort of seeing where that is and trying to perhaps update that document.
Great. Okay, well, thank you. So we'll move on to corporate services. Ms. Quinlan, did you have anything you want to point out? Anybody have any questions for Ms. Quinlan's report? You guys have been busy again. I guess it should be noted, the work you've done to secure the funding for the summer students as well this year, and I want to thank you for that. Mr. Kraus?
Yeah, Your Worship, so I think we received $46,000 for grants for our summer students. So I believe that's the highest we've ever, been granted. So that actually assists us out greatly this summer.
I think it's great, and it's to give some of these summer students some experience, and to get money to do it. Did you have anything to add there, Ms. Quinlan?
Thank you.
Well, thanks for securing all of that for the town. Planning and community development.
Thank you, Worship. Mr. Schwader could not be here today. So part of his report, there's two highlights I would like to put out to council. So you can see on the last page of the report, we are still involved in the e-venture for electrical vehicle charging stations. And that is going well. Everything is, it's to the point where we're actually seeking grant funding for that. So that's well under its way. And actually the city of Edmonton also joined the group with us. So it's Rocky Mountain House, Edson, Hinton, Whitecourt,
Drayton Valley.
Drayton Valley, MD of Greenview. So it was good to see Edmonton joining on board. So hopefully that gives some additional push for provincial or federal funding for the initiative. The other highlight is they've hired a new senior development officer. Her name is Miss Hartling. So she will be starting in development on July 5th. So this is Miss Hartling's last council meeting in her current role.
We know where to find you.
Run with together.
Congratulations, Renee.
Thank you very much.
Your Worship, I am just taking a step back and reviewing the position and how it works with our executive assistants and realigning probably some job descriptions and stuff like that. But then probably be posting sometime in July.
Okay, thank you. And I guess you're up next because we need the director report for engineering and operations. Many hats today.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry, Mr. Shanks is not available today for council meeting. I did ask him if he wanted anything specifically highlighted in his report, and he just responded, it's all self-explanatory. So if council has any questions, I will try to answer them. I know our projects are going very well right now, so 54th Street, they're doing the sub base right now, the curb is in, so they're not too far off of paving.
Yay.
47th seems to be steaming ahead. I think all the underground infrastructure is in already, and they're going at that pretty strong. This Friday is another walkthrough through Riverside Park. I think that's been sent out to council. The consultants just wanted to see it minus snow. So.
Great. Does anybody have any questions or comments on engineering?
One thing, I don't know if actually Mr. Shanks has in the report, but as council recalls, the Alberta Environment was requiring us to do testing for our backwater into the North Saskatchewan River, and they wanted it done now. We have successfully negotiated with them to put that out for another 4 or 5 years. So that's not going to be a consideration now, and we'll continue the battle for the necessity of that study. So.
Again, that was
$30,000.
right, 30,000, but the study was basically taking water from the river, testing it. Can you just give a quick?
Yeah, so the water comes from our intake into, I think it's their clarifying cells, and they just add a coagulant in there to drop the sediment out before it goes into the plant, and then we backwash that water back into the river. So that was the testing of that to see what that backwash actually had an effect on the river or not.
Okay. Yeah, it certainly. Well, thanks for doing that. That was, I think, a few months ago that you sent that letter. So good. Okay, I'm just looking for a motion to accept the councillor or the director's reports as written or presented. Councillor Auld. All in favor of that motion? It's carried. Thanks. Action list. Does anybody have any questions on the action list? Okay. Councillor Phillips.
I'll make a motion to accept the action list as presented.
Thank you. All in favor of that motion? Carried. Okay, does anybody have any administrative inquiries? Okay. Does anybody have any notices of motion? Oh. Okay. So it is 2:17. I will call for a 5-minute break, and when we come back, we'll go into closed session.